nonprofit voice. We're telling the stories of Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the nonprofit and the profit communities, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This KC Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. Kids are the future, but there are many children in our metro that face hurdles when it comes to their health and their well-being. They may be hungry, they may be dealing with mental health issues and challenges to living active lives in the neighborhoods in which they live. Welcome KC Healthy Kids, a nonprofit organization that's working to advance the health and the well-being of children and families through initiatives and advocacy work. And joining us to talk about KC Healthy Kids is its president and CEO, Danielle Robbins-Gregory. Danielle, welcome. It's so great to have you on KC Cares.
Thank you, Ruth. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
So I do want to start with just a very premise of what your mission, your vision is for KC Healthy Kids.
The mission is to advance the health of children and families in the Kansas City area. And we do that in a variety of ways, including helping them to access nutritious food and physical environments that are safe places for them to play, and to also access mental health resources.
That's our global view. So let's dial in and get into the nitty-gritty of what you all are doing and what your team does. How do you do that? That's big stuff to cover.
It is a lot to cover. So we take a number of approaches, and we have a number of solutions. One of them is what we call the food policy solution, which is to address the issues at the policy level. So that's working with organizations, working with policymakers to address issues around access to affordable healthcare, access to safe places to play, and access to nutritious food. So we may be working on the Farm Bill. We may be working to lower the sales tax on grocery items. We may be working to change ordinances in the local cities or counties to allow access to water for our urban farmers. So there's policy issues that we address, and we work with a number of partners across the community, and we have a number of coalitions that address those issues. In addition, we work in early care and education centers and in schools, bringing fresh, nutritious produce to those areas and to the families after school. We also identify mental health issues and trauma issues in the schools and in the early care centers and help link families and children to the services that they need, because we know that not all parents and not all teachers are able to recognize what's going on with their children. Is it developmental? Are there mental health issues? Are there behavioral health issues going on? And once you identify what that is, how do you respond appropriately, and how do you get them to the right care? So in general, KC Healthy Kids wants to make sure that kids have access to safe places to play, access to healthy, nutritious food, access to healthcare, which could be vaccines, it could be just wellness checks, and then also access to mental health care when and if it's needed.
So within your nonprofit, are you actually doing delivery of service?
We do some delivery of service. We have a licensed social worker who works in the early care and education centers. She provides case management services, does some trauma assessments. We have a PhD psychologist who does training and mentoring in the centers and in the schools and links children and families to services. On our farm, on Split Log Farm, which we've operated for the past decade, we bring children out. We show them how to plant, how to cultivate, how to grow their own foods, and then we have cooking classes for them so that they can learn how to use and cook the food themselves. So the services that are provided are real specific around working individually with the children. A lot of the work we do is behind the scenes. A lot of it's education, it's training, it's policy work, it's meeting with legislators, it's those kinds of activities.
Well, I want to hear more about Split Log Farm. Tell us about it. What is it? How does it work?
Split Log Farm is great. It's an urban farm in Wyandotte County. It's owned by Community Housing of Wyandotte County. We operate the farm and have operated it for about a decade now. It's a little less than 1/8 of an acre. It has, on one side is produce, and on the other side of the street is mostly fruit trees. We plant and grow anything from avocados to zucchinis, everything in between. So we plant and grow, and everything that's produced on the farm is given away to schools, to early care centers, and to families. We produce about 2,000 pounds of produce every year. And that's not enough. So we then also purchase food from urban farmers and give that food away through grants from local foundations and from the federal government, from individual donors and major donors that give to us so generously every year.
So you say you have kids that actually come and work on the farm. How does that work? How do you find the kids, and give us a snapshot?
We do, and they love it. The farm is right across the street from M.E. Pearson Elementary School, and so the children from that school often come over and work the farm there. But we also just have volunteers that come, and often they come to work the farm so that they can take produce home, of course. And for some, it's just a way to get their hands in the dirt and to learn about growing. We have an amazing farmer. Her name is Tracy Flowers, and she has some other staff and interns out there that work, and they make it fun. It's a fun place for all of us. Some of us just go after a day long in the office. It's nice to get out there and pick a few raspberries. So it's important for the community that we produce the food and give it away for free, and it's important that we provide the opportunity for the community members to actually experience farming, because we know that it can be very therapeutic to get your hands in the dirt and to eat fresh fruit.
I was going to say, is there a particular story you can share? I would think it would be, really impactful to watch a young person who has maybe never had that kind of experience, and what happens after they do.
It is really neat. We have a sweet potato dig every fall. So a lot of the kids come out for the sweet potato dig. So it's a lot of getting on your hands and knees and digging down deep to get these great big potatoes and pounds of potatoes. A lot of the stories are around children just smelling and tasting vegetables that they haven't had before, and experiencing something new, and knowing that there are healthy options out there. We aren't It's not important for us to say that children can't have a cookie. Of course they can have a cookie, but these are sometimes foods. So we want to expose them to other alternatives. And then we also want to expose the parents to the alternatives as well, and help them to learn how to cook those foods, because some of them are foreign to many of us. Do we all know how to cook an eggplant, and how do we do that, and what's the best way to make it taste great? And so it's the farms is a critical piece of the work that we do, and we're very proud of the work at Split Log.
So food access is a huge issue, and we hear it from any number of organizations. We hear it in the news all the time. Why is this such a big issue? Here we are, people would think, living in the United States, a free country, people living the American dream, yet we have people who are hungry, particularly children. What's going on? Why is this such a challenge?
There are a number of reasons. Sometimes it's just about the production and the distribution of food. And during the pandemic, that was a huge issue. We had trouble getting food, as I remember. You probably remember, the supply lines were affected. So sometimes it's just about trying to determine what are those distribution issues, and then we try to work at the policy level to address what those issues could be. Other reasons, of course, we all know that there are locations that are food deserts that don't have grocery stores nearby, and people are traveling 20 miles to get fresh produce. And so that's frustration. That's frustrating. So we work to help develop the community so the grocery stores are available in all areas. So it is very frustrating in a wealthy country like ours that there are families who are food insecure, but we are lucky that there are a number of partners in the Kansas City area. We have harvesters, we have Cultivate KC, we have KC Community Gardens, and we all work hard, and many others that I can't list them all, but we all work hard to make sure that families aren't food insecure, and try to address those issues at the root cause, and make sure that families have access.
And you're doing a lot of educating. Will you share with us that kind of work?
We do. We do education around nutritious food and physical activity. So it's about food, but then there's also the physical activity that's important as well. So children who may walk to school may notice that their sidewalks are not safe. So we teach them to advocate for themselves and to report that the sidewalk needs repair, or the stop signs down at the bus stop. So there are things like that that we help children to advocate for themselves so that they can recognize those issues and ask for help. There may not be a playground. The playground may be falling apart. And so let's advocate and make sure that those areas are safe and appropriate for children. So there's education there that we do. There's also education around mental health. Mental health has, as I'm sure you're aware, there's stigma to this day around mental health. Not everyone knows where to go when they identify a mental health issue. Not everyone can identify whether it's a mental health issue or is it is it just developmental what the children are going through. So Dr. Osborne and our licensed clinical social worker work in the early care and education centers. We want to get them really early. So we go into those early care and education centers and we train the teachers and we train the parents and we train the administrators to recognize trauma in a child. And it's hard to understand that there is trauma in children who are as young as 6 months old and toddlers. Dr. Osborne can help identify whether or not that's trauma or is that a normal course of functioning. And whatever it is, how do you deal with that and help those teachers have a script for addressing what that issue is and linking them to appropriate care and treatment. So education is important, giving people information so that they can make their own choices about what's best for their family is what we'd like to do.
So how do you make those connections of where Dr. Osborne can go? It's a big city. So how do you pick and choose? People come to you. How does it all work?
It is a big city. We are referred, but a lot of it has to do with where the funding comes from. We're lucky to have funding from the Jackson County Community Children's Services Fund. That's a tax on taxpayers in Jackson County pay. And we are a recipient of a grant. So we have, I believe, 5 centers that are in Jackson County that are funded by the county. There also funding comes from Wyandotte County. So funding often drives where we are.
Gotcha.
We also look to centers that are about 50% subsidy. So we want to get to centers that don't have the resources necessarily to bring someone in to provide education to their teachers. And so we do this free of charge, of course, with the grant support that we have. So we look to centers that are under-resourced and really need the help. Right now, we are in 10 to 12 centers, I believe, and we have served up to 20 at this point, providing education.
And that's everything from what? Him going in and doing like a session with the teaching staff to...
Right. And it's not just a 1 hour, here's what trauma in children looks like. It's 15 hours and the teachers are paid to attend the session because of course we can't expect them to go to a session and not be paid for their time. So they are paid to attend 15 hours of training, and then there's advanced training if they want more. So it covers a range of topics, with trauma being the centerpiece. How do you recognize trauma? And if you do recognize trauma, what do you do about that? And how do you respond in the classroom? Who do you link them to care later on? In addition to that, there's mentoring for the teachers. And so the teachers can call Dr. Osborne at any point and say, this is what's happening in my classroom. What can I do about it? And she can either come on site or she can just talk them through. Oftentimes, these are things that happen over and over and over again. So once you have a script on what it's like when you see a behavior in a child, then you can use that script to help you address that issue in the future. In addition, Dr. Osborne and Shelby, who's our licensed social worker, provide education to the parents. And so there are parent sessions. Those are done online and also in person. And so they can go for 6 hours worth of education with Dr. Osborne. And we also provide case management services in the early care and education centers as well.
We're talking with Danielle Robbins-Gregory. She's the CEO and president of KC Healthy Kids. there's a lot of work out there to do. How do you and your organization prioritize where you're going to go when?
That's a really good question. We do as much as we can, and then we rely on the generous contributions of individuals and individual donors and local foundations, the federal government, the county, the city. So the better we are at grant writing, the better we are at explaining what it is that we do and how important the work is to the community, the more we can do. But quite honestly, we prioritize by, like with the early care and education centers, we make sure we're addressing the most under-resourced areas first. When we're working with schools, it's for the same reason. We have a number of districts that we work with, and we prioritize there. When we're working with farmers and partners in the community, we work with those who, you know, come to the table and who ask us for assistance. We're available. So it's never, we never feel it's enough. We always want to do more, but that's the life of a nonprofit.
Isn't it though? We think that a work is done. If it's done, there's no reason for us, right?
Exactly. So true. The best thing that could happen is we could go out of business because all families and children would be thriving.
Right. Now you do also programming out in the community. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like? You have special events from time to time.
We do. We host the Eat Local and Organic Expo, which is held in April, and that's the kickoff to the farmers market season. So that's where 30 to 40 farmers come and they showcase their product, and people can come and can purchase product from those local farmers. There's a kids zone. It's just a fun day of activity, and it happens every April. So we do that. We also have the Greater Kansas City Food Policy Coalition, which is a group of organizations who have come together for the past decade and address the issues around the food system. And so we have monthly meetings, we do assessments about what's going on in the community and report those results. We also have other coalitions throughout the state of Kansas, food policy coalitions that work on policy issues throughout Kansas.
It sounds like a skill set that you really have to embrace is conversation and making those connections. I know that sometimes is a challenge for those in the nonprofit arena. So we're ready to learn from you. How do you do that coalition building? Is there a secret sauce or a key couple of things you can share that works well?
I think it's just critical to be open and to identify those partnerships when they come before you, and to cultivate and to stay connected and to find shared missions and shared visions and work to address the issues. I think that's probably true for all of our funders and all of our partners and those that we haven't identified yet that we would like to work with in the future. We're often addressing the same goal. And so what is it that we can do together to address these issues? And if you come at it from that perspective, it opens up a wide variety of ways to work together and the methodology for doing so. I'm not sure that there is a secret sauce. I think you have to be available and you have to be on and you have to be ready for these conversations at any time. And you just have to understand why we're doing the work and remember that work is important. Because we all need help at some point, and we all need an advocate at some point, and we all need educating at some point. And so if we can just stay true to our mission and stay true to our vision, then everyone just sort of comes together. You sort of gravitate together, if that makes sense.
See, it does. It seems like there's more people working in the food access space. How do you play together and make sure you're not duplicating efforts?
Well, we do. Most recently, we've done a study, an assessment of the Kansas City area, a 1.5 year long study to assess what's happening in the community, who's doing what, how are they going about that, and then reporting those results and sharing them throughout and making sure that everyone's at the table so that we don't duplicate, because that's the last thing we want to do. So, and it's a waste of resources, and donors and foundations don't want us wasting resources. So it's important to always assess and to evaluate the work that you're doing, and make sure that there's a feedback loop, there's a feedback mechanism for what's happening and what you're doing, and that you're efficient and you're effective and you're not wasting resources. So I think if you're cognizant, you can stay on top of that, but it can happen, and there can be conflict. There's obviously disagreements, and conflict can be good at times. It's important for us to identify what our goals are and what our strategies are, and if they don't align, how can we work together to still meet our goals, but address the conflict.
So at the bottom line is helping kids.
True, exactly.
And making sure that they're not hungry, and that they're healthy and can play in safe space. How did you get into this line of work?
I started as a researcher working for a small research and evaluation firm in the Kansas City area, and I was evaluating mental health programs and criminal justice programs, mental health court programs. Enjoyed that tremendously, and was eventually recruited to a large community mental health center in the area, Rediscover, and worked administration in that area, doing mostly grant writing and those kinds of things. But I've always had children has been a cornerstone. I come from a long line of teachers and a long line of daycare professionals, and it's just sort of at my core. My grandmother, my mother, my aunt were all teachers, and so it's just something that is innate. And when the opportunity came for Casey Healthy Kids, I jumped on it. It was sort of a culmination of everything that I have done, from research to mental health to working with children to managing a nonprofit. So it just feels like it's the right place for me to be.
Sounds like a little passion was in there to begin with as well. And
I think it's a requirement for nonprofits. I think you have to have passion if you're working in nonprofits.
So true. So true. As you joined in 2018 to head up Casey Healthy Kids, now several years out, what have you learned along the way?
Patience. Things change so quickly that you can't sweat the small stuff. You just have to continue to move forward, one foot in front of the other. We were lucky enough recently to receive a major gift from Mackenzie Scott. And for us, it was a huge gift. It was $1 million unrestricted gift that we can use to expand programming. You asked how we decide where we serve and who we serve. Well, when we have gifts like this, we can do more. And so the team is extremely excited to expand the work we do, to grow more food, to serve more centers, to serve more families, to do more policy work. So it's exciting to have that happen. But there were times when we didn't know where the next grant was coming from, and we were struggling to identify what the messaging was so that we could identify new donors. And so it's just patience is I think is the most important thing to remember, and to just keep moving forward, and remember that the mission is about children and families, and we do what we can with the resources we have, and they may not always be available, but when they are, we're going to expand. So
what a wonderful gift, and kudos to you all, and moving forward. What are some of the areas that you are looking to expand? I know I was reading about calming rooms and some other things you've got in your back pocket.
We are so excited about the calming rooms. The first funder to support that is 15 in the Mahomes Foundation. So we were thrilled to get a grant from them. And the calming rooms are just what they sound like, areas that children can go when they are feeling overwhelmed in a childcare center. It can be overstimulating for anyone in a childcare center. It's loud and there may be lights on and there's a lot going on. And if you're having, a rough morning, you may just need a place to go. So we have an amazing board member who is also a designer. So she's helping us to design the space. And then Dr. Osborne and our social worker are obviously working together to identify what it is that the children need in the center. And we think we'll do sort of a hanging cocoon with curtains around the child and some noise canceling headphones and some books and music, and they teach yoga. So there'll be an opportunity for the children to have a place to go to calm down. And we're doing that in at least 4 centers, and we're hoping to do more.
Well, I was hoping there'd be a calming room for the staff or for parents. Sometimes we need a timeout, right?
We absolutely do. That's so true.
That's very exciting. How big a team do you have working with you?
There are 14 staff, and then we have 6 full-time contractors that work with us. And then, of course, numerous partners throughout the community.
So as the top person in the organization, quickly share with us how you're able to be everywhere all at once. How do you prioritize that?
We have an amazing staff of experts, quite frankly. So we're all sort of content experts. So we share it. Rachel McGinnis-Millsap is our VP of Programs and Policy, and she really is the person who's anywhere and everywhere. She's all over the place. She manages the farm. She manages the policy activities. She's over the mental health programming. So she's all over. But honestly, we just share. We do what we can, and we say yes when we can. And sometimes we have to say no, but we really have a good core group, and we have a core group of volunteers that also help as well. We have a great board who shows up anytime and every time, and we're always looking for board members. So if you're interested in being a board member, please check out our website.
Go ahead and give us that website. This is your little commercial here where people can go and find out about those opportunities.
It's really simple. It's kchealthykids.org.
Well, you're doing amazing work here in the Metro, and we know with this infusion from Mackenzie Scott that you'll continue to, bottom line, help our kids just be the best they can be. So thank you for being at the leadership, at the helm, and driving this forward. Then thank you for your time.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it, Ruth.
Thank you for joining us for KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by a nonprofit, Charitable Communications. This KC Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. If you'd like to be a guest on KC Cares or underwriting opportunities, visit our website, kccaresonline.org, and spread the love. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio, and on Instagram, KC Cares Online. And don't forget, catch us Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on ESPN 1510 a.m. and 94.5 FM. Thanks for joining us on KC Cares.